Arthur Hayes has made a bold prediction that Bitcoin will reach $1 million in 2028. This prediction was made on Bitcoin Conference 2025 during his presentation. He also made a prediction for Bitcoin this year. Curious on what the highlights are? Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to Republic Labs YouTube channel. In this video, we will talk about Arthur Hayes' prediction and why it's turning heads in the crypto market. So 4 days ago, Arthur Hayes just gave his presentation in the event of Bitcoin Conference 2025. He mentioned a couple of things about the crypto market. However, one statement that attracted attention in the crypto market is his Bitcoin prediction. In this event, he mentioned that Bitcoin will reach $1 million in 2028, and he stated that it's simple math. There are a couple of highlights that support his statement. The first one is, in his words, the bank bond buying bonanza. He stated that currently there are talks in the government of an exemption of the SLR regulation in the United States. If you don't know what the SLR regulation is, it's basically a regulation that limits the leverage that banks can use to buy bonds. This is to mitigate the risk of over-leveraging, which caused most financial market crashes in history. However, currently there are talks of an exemption of this rule. So this means that banks can have unlimited leverage to buy bonds in the United States. While this seems bad in the long term, in the short term, this will bring more liquidity to the financial market. However, this might result in a bubble and a crash again. But since we're all focusing on the short term, well, I don't know what to tell you, but this probably will happen. So basically, with unlimited leverage, banks can have unlimited liquidity, which means unlimited profit potential. This profit potential can translate into more riskier assets, which means the liquidity might transfer into crypto and stocks. This is why it's one of the reasons that Arthur Hayes predicts that Bitcoin can reach $1 million in 2028. Also, since we're currently living under the Trump administration, there are potentially a couple of new regulations that might push the liquidity in the United States, since Donald Trump himself is a businessman. So a couple of regulations that he is currently planning might suggest more liquidity to the market. Another one is the consideration to bring Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac public. If you don't know who they are basically government-supported enterprises that focuses on mortgage. They are short for the Federal National Mortgage Association and the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, respectively. Basically, their job is to provide support for mortgages and liquidity for the housing market. If they go public, then this means that their limit might be uncapped. This also brings huge risk in the long term. However, in the short term, this might bring more liquidity from the housing market into more riskier assets such as crypto and stocks. If you remember from history, in 2008, the US housing market crashed. After this happened, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac was capped on their liquidity. This has put them under conservatorship, which gives them limit. However, if they go public, then their limit might be erased. So this means they can raise more money and provide more liquidity, specifically $15 billion from the private market to the housing market. Also, they can leverage up to 33x, which can create an instant $5 trillion in liquidity for the housing market. From the housing market, this liquidity might translate into more riskier assets such as crypto and stocks, which can be moved from profits or from leverage again. This is why Arthur Hayes predicts that this might be one of the sentiment that pushes Bitcoin upwards, even up to $1 million in 2028. So basically, the math from Arthur Hayes stated that there will be $8.9 trillion in new liquidity injecting to the crypto market. This will basically come from a couple of things. The first one is an increased bank lending to the real economy, since we're heading into a dovish direction. This will create $3 trillion in liquidity. The second one are bank purchases of treasury bonds, which will equate to around $900 billion in liquidity, especially if the SLR regulation is exempted. The last one, which we just talked about, is the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac liquidity injection, which will equate to around $5 trillion. All of this combines to new liquidity of up to $8.9 trillion, which is why he stated that Bitcoin might be bullish up until 2028. He compared the situation to COVID, as COVID printed up to $4 trillion in new liquidity. With the MAGA or Trump administration in charge, the predicted new liquidity is $8.9 trillion, which is double what COVID did. So this means he predicted that Bitcoin reaching $1 million is easy. Also, after his presentation on stage, he made a prediction with the same logic for Bitcoin's price this year. The prediction was made during his interview with Decrypt, as he stated that Bitcoin will reach $250,000 this year. This is basically because of the same logic, which is new liquidity in the market. However, in our opinion, all of this only pointed to a positive condition in the short term. Because if all of this happened, in the long term we might experience another bubble and crash for the global economy, which is bad. Well, let us know what you guys think. Do you guys think his prediction will be correct or not? Or this is good or not? Also, if you guys like contents like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you guys are notified when we next upload. Cheers, guys!